Emulation. Now, emulation is one of those things that, depending on where you are on the internet, you'll get one of two different opinions. On one side, emulation is the future of gaming. It's the way to experience games from the past that you basically would not be able to otherwise. On the other side, you have Nintendo with their whole, you're pirating, yar, emulation is piracy, yar. And ultimately, it's one of those things that, depending where you are, you get a lot of hyperbolic comments about. Now, personally, I love emulation, and I am all for it. It's something that I really, really advise people to do more. I want to help promote more, because it is just a really, really amazing tool. And ultimately, that's all emulation is. It's just a tool that allows you to play games from the past. So, what exactly is emulation? Well, simply put, emulation is just a way to get one computer or piece of hardware to function like another. It emulates it. For example, my PC that you can see right in the background, right by, it's a bit weird to do this with OBS, right there, that PC there, I can turn that to function like a Super Nintendo, and I can play all my classic Super Nintendo games right there on my computer. And that's ultimately all an emulator is. It just allows you to play your games on a different set of hardware. That's it. It's simple, easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's just a tool. So, is emulation legal? Yeah. There's no two ways about it. Emulation is just legal. It's been proven legal. In fact, there was a court case many years ago where Sony actually tried to sue this company called Bleem for their emulator, which allowed people to basically play PlayStation 1 games on the PC, as well as the Sega Dreamcast, believe it or not, and Sony lost. It's as simple as that. Sony lost that lawsuit. Granted, the company Bleem died, but ultimately, it was proven to be legal. It set a legal precedent for this whole thing. And even before the whole situation with Bleem, there was the something game station that was available on Mac, which was a way to play PlayStation games on Mac back in the day. And I had a similar situation as well, where Sony didn't really take them out in the traditional, that's illegal, therefore it's ours sort of deal. Sony basically bought the parent company and shut it down that way. So yeah, emulation, totally legal. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. But, Mr. Sheep, I hear you saying, what about piracy? Yar! And yes, a lot of people conflate emulation with piracy. But it's very, very important for me to really specify that emulation isn't piracy. Emulation is, again, like I said earlier, just a tool. That's it. Whether you pirate your games or get the games legitimately, well, that's down to you. That's more of a moral thing for the individual. But just because you emulate a game doesn't mean you're pirating a game. Case in point, Nintendo Switch. You can easily get Nintendo Switch games legally. You can dump them legally, assuming you have the correct type of Switch. And Bob's your uncle. You can play your Nintendo Switch games on your PC legally, which, not really something I'm gonna show, because Nintendo can be bullies, to say the least. I have big problems with Nintendo. They're kind of the ones that's really perpetuating the whole emulation is illegal argument. And emulation is piracy. And it's because just Nintendo's viewpoint on things like this is just flat out wrong. And it's understandable because they have the money to throw around, so they can just silence people. And it's not much people could do about it. If Nintendo were to do a copyright claim against this very video, I can't do anything about it. I can't afford to fight Nintendo in court. I cannot do anything about it. And that's kind of the problem right now when it comes to Nintendo. Nintendo not in my good books. Straight up, they are not in my good books at all. And it's infuriating. Because, I love their games. I love Nintendo games. but I don't like the way they do their business. That's an argument for another video another day, though. Like, Nintendo's whole spiel pisses me off. But yeah, ultimately, emulation, it's not piracy. And generally, a lot of people have different moral stuff when it comes to piracy anyway. I'm going to make my own video about piracy in the future. But that's ultimately the big thing, really, to go with this whole thing, you know? So why emulate? Well, there's a couple of reasons why people would want to emulate, and it is very personal, the reasons. Like, for me, I just want a method to keep access to my games long after the original hardware's gone. It's as simple as that. So, like, a perfect example is my old Sega Saturn. My old Sega Saturn blew up on me, essentially, which really pissed me off because I had just bought Panzer Dragoon Saga at the time, and people who know how expensive that game is, well, yeah, you can only imagine my anger. So I had this legally bought game that I just purchased, and then my Sega Saturn dies. So what option is there for me? Either spend more money again to buy another Sega Saturn that will only last a few more years anyway, because a lot of that hardware is on its way out, or emulate. And that's what I did. I emulated my copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga, and tell you what, anybody who hasn't played Panzer Dragoon Saga, you're missing out. It's a bloody good RPG. Really good, especially for the time period it came out. Like, I think it came out around the same time as Final Fantasy VII, and I know Final Fantasy VII out of the two is the one that took off, but don't sleep on Panzer Dragoon Saga. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant game, if I do say so myself. Oh, lovely jubbly. Oh. But another reason why I'd say a lot of people would emulate as well, outside of just being able to play their own library after the hardware dies, is a case of preservation. Now, I know a lot of people will roll their eyes when preservation is brought up, because a lot of people will use preservation as a justification for piracy. They'll use it as a justification for a lot of things. But personally, that is ultimately the most important thing when it comes to emulation. Like, it allows games to be playable. It allows, game systems to be playable in some form, even if it's not identical. It should be close enough for the most part. And it basically allows these products to be used many years in the future. And it's one of those things that even game re-releases these days, a lot of them use emulation. Like, look at the Jurassic Park collection, or anything that Modern Vintage Gamer was working on, like the Rocket Knight Adventures collection. They use emulation. And yeah, if you ever wanted to play Jurassic Park for the old classic Jurassic Park games, check it out, because it's a good package. Same with the Rocket Knight ones, which I haven't tried the Rocket Knight collection yet. But that's a game that, I'm looking forward to playing through. I've always wanted to do a full playthrough of Rocket Knight, because I've played it a lot in the past, but I've never done a full playthrough. I'm excited. I'm excited. So anyway, why am I bringing all this stuff up? Well, simply because, for me personally, and this is just my personal belief with this whole thing, I believe emulation is the single most important thing right now for the games industry. Both community emulation and proprietary emulation, both of them, they need to exist. And the reason for that is community emulation will allow you to play all of your classics and preserve and keep all of your classics playable for years on end. And then then the proprietary emulators, well, they need to exist as well, because they give publishers and developers a way to re-release their games easily and quickly and affordably, essentially. And honestly, emulation is one of the biggest things that's got such a target on its back, mostly because of Nintendo going, you're emulating, how dare you filthy pirate, and it's just depressing, like, it's one of them things where I really believe emulation is, like, probably the most important thing to keep active in the community and keep active in the industry. And it's frustrating, you got all these bad actors, Nintendo, basically fighting against it. But yeah, basically, emulation, if I were to sum up everything I'm saying in this video, emulation is preservation. Emulation is important. And it's something that we need to embrace. Now, I'm not telling people to pirate games, you know. Again, I have my own personal thoughts on piracy, which might be controversial, but we'll talk about that another time. But emulate your games. Like, seriously, give it a go. You can even run your games better than you could originally in some cases. Like, say, a good example is Breath of the Wild. You have a Wii U? Well, plug the Wii U in soon and try it out, because chances are, if you don't do that, it might die. Wii U's got a big hardware defect, apparently. But if you want to play Breath of the Wild on the Wii U, run it through Cemu. Trust me, you can play the game at 60 FPS, 1080p plus 4K. It will be a dream. It is so much better than the original experience. And that's kind of another cool thing about emulation, is you can enhance the games. You know, you can, and you've got the choice. That's the best thing about it. You can choose how you want to play your games. You can either play them in their original released state, like PS1, for example, with DuckStation. If I wanted to, I can have all the wobbly textures, I can have the warping, pixelated goodness of the PS1, or I could disable all of that, have the game hyper clean, hyper high resolution, everything nice and smooth. But it's my choice, and that's the great thing about it. But I think that's basically all I really wanted to say here. All in all, emulation is preservation. The future of gaming is in emulation, mark my words. Or at the very least, if not emulation, compatibility layers like Proton or Wine and stuff like that allows you to basically play your games on more platforms. Because at the end of the day, that's all I really want with games. You know, I want the history of games preserved. I want the history of games to remain playable in the long term. I'm sure plenty of people wouldn't object with that. Well, unless they're Nintendo. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Don't be sheepish, and I shall catch you all again. Bye!